Trust me, these are some of the most insanely good games that no one's talking about, and that's just unfair. Coming in at number 15, we have Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy. If you dismiss this game because of Marvel's Avengers, which, let's be honest, was a mess at launch, you're not alone, but that was a huge mistake. Unlike the live service chaos of Avengers, Guardians of the Galaxy is a fully fledged single-player adventure that nails everything from storytelling to character development. It puts you in the boots of Star-Lord, leading the dysfunctional yet lovable Guardians through an intergalactic roller coaster filled with humor, heart, and some genuinely emotional moments. The dialogue alone is worth the price of admission, with the Guardians constantly bantering, bickering, and bonding in ways that feel natural and never forced. Combat is fluid, and while you only control Star-Lord directly, you can issue commands to the rest of the team, making battles feel dynamic and strategic. The cherry on top, a killer 80s soundtrack that perfectly complements the action. If you skip this one, do yourself a favor and give it a shot. You'll be surprised at just how much heart it has. At number 14, we have Control, a mind-bending supernatural thriller from Remedy Entertainment. Imagine stepping into an eerie government facility where reality bends, objects defy physics, and every corner holds a supernatural secret. Control is exactly that kind of experience. You play as Jessie Faden, a woman searching for her missing brother in a government agency tasked with investigating paranormal phenomena. Sounds simple, right? Well, think again. This game messes with your perception of reality, bending walls, throwing enemies across rooms with a flick of the wrist, and unraveling a deeply unsettling narrative that keeps you guessing. Despite receiving critical acclaim, Control never quite reached mainstream popularity, possibly because its bizarre world and deliberately vague storytelling required players to dig deep into its lore. But if you give it a chance, the game will reward you with one of the most unique, eerie, and exhilarating experiences gaming has to offer. With fluid combat, reality warping abilities, and some of the best environmental storytelling in years, Control deserves far more recognition than it got. Sliding into the 13th spot, we have Dying Light, a game that redefined the zombie genre by blending intense action with seamless parkour mechanics. Most survival games lean heavily on suspense and limited mobility, but Dying Light takes a completely different approach. Here, agility is your strongest asset. Whether you're scavenging for resources, crafting makeshift weapons, or tackling missions, every moment feels dynamic and immersive. Rather than creeping through dark hallways, you're sprinting across rooftops, vaulting over obstacles, and zip-lining between buildings that makes escaping the undead an exhilarating experience. What sets Dying Light apart is its unpredictable world. Daytime allows you to scavenge and plan, but once night falls, the real horror begins. The undead become faster and far more aggressive, making every movement a desperate struggle for survival. With its intense chases, deep crafting mechanics, and a co-op mode that makes the experience even more chaotic, Dying Light delivers a unique and heart-pounding adventure that more players should experience.
Enough! One of us is going to die.
At 12th spot, we have A Plague Tale: Innocence, a hauntingly beautiful game that manages to blend historical fiction, stealth, and supernatural horror into something truly special. Released in 2019, this game should have been a smash hit. It had gripping storytelling, breathtaking visuals, and an emotional depth that rivaled some of the biggest narrative-driven games out there. Even with its brilliance, it remains largely overlooked by many. Set in 14th century France during the Black Death, A Plague Tale: Innocence follows Amisha and her younger brother Hugo as they struggle to survive both a terrifying rat plague and the merciless Inquisition. What makes this game stand out isn't just its unique setting, but the way it turns something as simple as light into a weapon against swarms of flesh-eating rats. The puzzles are clever, the stealth is tense, and the story absolutely gut-wrenching. While the sequel, A Plague Tale: Requiem, gained a little more traction, the original still deserves way more recognition than it ever got.
Icing on the fucking cake.
Taking the 11th place on our list is Sleeping Dogs. Look, if you ever wished for a Grand Theft Auto game with martial arts, an undercover cop story, and a rich, immersive Hong Kong setting, then this was the game for you. You play as Wei Shen, an officer infiltrating the triads, balancing loyalty and duty while throwing down some of the slickest hand-to-hand combat the genre has ever seen. It's got the open world thrills, but instead of relying solely on gunplay, it introduced brutal melee fights, environmental takedowns, and high-speed chases that felt straight out of an action movie. So what went wrong? Well, it dropped at a time when GTA 5 was rewriting the rules of open world games, stealing the spotlight from just about everything else. Because of that, this absolute gem never got the recognition it deserved, but those who did give it a shot found one of the most gripping, well-crafted crime stories gaming has ever seen. Even now, fans are still hoping for a sequel, but until that day comes, Sleeping Dogs remains a hidden masterpiece just waiting to be experienced. Coming in at 10th place is Alien Isolation, a game that stands out as a masterclass in survival horror, delivering a nerve-wracking experience that keeps players on edge from start to finish. When it comes to survival horror, most fans immediately think of Resident Evil or Silent Hill, but Alien Isolation delivered one of the most terrifying experiences in modern gaming. Unlike the action-heavy approach of other Alien games, Isolation leans fully into psychological horror. You're not some overpowered space marine mowing down aliens with a pulse rifle. You're Amanda Ripley, alone on a space station, desperately trying to outsmart an unpredictable, nearly invincible xenomorph. The AI in the game, brutally intelligent, the tension through the roof. The dim lighting and eerie sounds create a constant sense of unease, making every step forward feel like a life or death decision. For horror fans, this should be a no-brainer, yet somehow Alien Isolation remains a hidden gem in the genre. Claiming the 9th spot, we have Just Cause 4. Let's be honest, when it comes to pure chaotic fun, few games do it better than the Just Cause series, and yet for some reason, Just Cause 4 slipped under the radar for many players. Maybe it was overshadowed by bigger releases that year, just like Sleeping Dogs, or maybe people just assumed it was more of the same. But those who dismissed it missed out on one of the most ridiculously fun sandbox experiences in gaming. This entry took everything wild about its predecessors, the grappling hook, wingsuit, and absurdly destructive physics, and cranked it up to 11, with massive tornadoes tearing through enemy bases and blizzards reducing visibility to near zero. The dynamic weather system ensured that no two moments felt the same in this chaotic open world playground. Sure, the story won't win any awards, but let's be real, nobody plays Just Cause for deep narrative. They play it to launch cars off cliffs, tether helicopters to exploding barrels, and see how much chaos they can cause before the game engine collapses under its own insanity. And in that regard, Just Cause 4 absolutely delivers. Landing at number 8, it's The Evil Within 2, a game that throws players into a twisted world where nothing is as it seems. Unlike its predecessor, which stuck to a more linear structure, this sequel opens up its environments, allowing for deeper exploration and more organic horror moments. You step into the shoes of Sebastian Castellanos, a detective with a broken past, as he navigates the eerie town of Union, a place that distorts reality and shifts unpredictably, making every step forward feel like stepping into the unknown. One of the most impressive things about The Evil Within 2 is its atmosphere. The game constantly shifts between quiet, slow-burning dread and heart-pounding chases where you're barely escaping with your life. The enemies? Pure nightmare fuel. From grotesque amalgamations of flesh and machinery to eerie stalkers who whisper disturbing phrases as they hunt you down, every moment feels unsettling, and yet at its core, it tells an emotional story about a father desperately searching for his lost daughter. It's horror with heart, and it's baffling how it slipped through the cracks of mainstream gaming discussions. In the 7th position, we have Watch Dogs 2. The first Watch Dogs was one of those games that had everything going for it, a slick hacking mechanic, a futuristic setting, and an ambitious open world concept. But its actual launch, a letdown. So when Watch Dogs 2 rolled around, many gamers had already moved on, and that's a shame because this sequel is everything the first game should have been. Set in the vibrant, tech-savvy streets of San Francisco, Watch Dogs 2 ditches the brooding atmosphere of its predecessor for a colorful colorful, free-spirited adventure. The hacking mechanics are deeper, the missions are wildly creative, and the cast of characters, especially protagonist Marcus Holloway, actually have personality. Plus, let's be real, who doesn't want to control a city with just their phone? Yet for all its improvements, Watch Dogs 2 never quite got the recognition it deserved. Whether it was the lingering disappointment from the first game or simply bad timing, many gamers overlooked this gem. Up next at number 6 is Prey, a psychological sci-fi thriller that challenges everything you think you know about survival. Set aboard the massive space station Talos 1, it throws you into an isolated world where alien creatures known as the Typhon can be anywhere or anything. A simple office chair, a desk lamp, even a harmless coffee mug could suddenly come alive and attack, keeping players constantly on edge. The station itself is a labyrinth of interconnected spaces, each revealing more about the station's dark secrets and the experiments that led to its downfall. Despite its intricate world building and deep player-driven storytelling, Prey somehow never gained the spotlight it deserved. With its freedom to approach situations creatively, whether hacking, sneaking, or using the game's innovative glue cannon to reshape the environment, it rewards ingenuity in a way few games do. Talos 1 feels alive, filled with haunting audio logs and cryptic messages that piece together its eerie, tragic past. It's an immersive, cerebral experience that should have been celebrated alongside gaming's greatest, yet it remains an unsung masterpiece. Securing the 5th spot, we have Mad Max, an overlooked gem that delivers some of the most exhilarating open-world action in gaming. You step into the boots of Max Rockatansky, navigating a beautifully desolate wasteland filled with hostile gangs, scavenged resources, and high-speed vehicular combat that makes every chase feel like a blockbuster scene. While it boasts intense melee brawls and engaging exploration, it never quite broke into the mainstream conversation. Perhaps it got lost in the flood of major releases that year, or people mistakenly wrote it off as a forgettable adaptation. This is a game where the world itself tells a story. The sandstorms that rip across the landscape aren't just pretty effects, they can change the tide of battle in an instant. Combat is satisfying and weighty, with Max's brutal counter-heavy fighting style making every punch land with impact. Plus, the car combat is unmatched, with high-speed chases, explosive takedowns, and vehicular duels that make you feel like a true road warrior. Even today, it remains one of the most immersive open world experiences out there, and it's crazy that more people don't talk about it.
There's nothing like a fresh clip.
Ranked at number 4th, this one is Shadow Warrior 2, a game that took the wild chaos of its predecessor and pushed it to the extreme. With Lo Wang back in action with his signature blend of sword-slashing, gun-blazing, joke-cracking action, this time the world is bigger, the fights are faster, and the weapons are even more ridiculous. Imagine Doom meets Borderlands, but instead of demons and cel-shaded chaos, you get cyber ninjas, demonic warlords, and a wise-cracking protagonist who refuses to take anything seriously. That's what this game is about. It's an adrenaline-fueled ride that somehow flew under the radar despite delivering one of the most exhilarating first-person combat experiences of its time. But Shadow Warrior 2 isn't just about its absurd weapon variety, katanas, chainsaws, and rocket launchers, etc., but also its surprising depth. The game introduces procedurally generated levels, RPG-style upgrades, and co-op gameplay, making every encounter unpredictable and fresh. And let's talk about that movement system. Double jumps, dashes, wall runs. It makes combat feel fluid and stylish, like you're starring in your own high-octane action movie. It's bold, it's fast, and it's criminally underrated.
Enemy in sight! Heading out! I told you!
Cracking the list at number 3, we've got Spec Ops: The Line. Look, I know what you're thinking. At first glance, this might seem like just another modern military shooter filled with sand, guns, and explosions, but trust me, this one is different. Inspired by Apocalypse Now, this game delivered a psychological gut punch disguised as a third-person cover shooter. By the time you reach the infamous white phosphorus scene, you realize this isn't just about shooting enemies, it's about questioning everything. Despite its deep, thought-provoking narrative, Spec Ops: The Line never found a mainstream audience. audience. Some players likely expected another Call of Duty style shooter, but instead found a game that challenged their moral compass at every turn. Others may have overlooked it due to its lack of long-term multiplayer appeal. To whatever the reason, it gradually faded from memory. But for those who played it, unforgettable. Few games have ever dared to explore the horrors of war like this one did. Claiming the second spot is Rise, Son of Rome. Let's be real, this game was a technical showpiece when the Xbox One launched. The visuals, jaw-dropping, the combat, brutal, cinematic, and surprisingly satisfying. Playing as Marius Titus, you slash through enemies in glorious slow motion, feeling every hit land with the weight of a true Roman warrior, and yet somehow Rise became nothing more than a footnote in gaming history. However, even with all its visual splendor, Rise, Son of Rome faced major criticisms. The first was its combat system. While it was flashy and brutal, it became repetitive rather quickly. Another factor that hurt the game's reception was its lack of variety. The story, while intriguing, felt linear and predictable. There was little room for exploration, and the missions were often repetitive, focusing more on spectacle than substance. It's still a title that is remembered fondly by some, and it remains a beautiful example of what could have been. And finally, at number 1, we have Titanfall 2. When this game first dropped back in 2016, it should have been an instant classic. It had everything: a fluid movement system, exhilarating mech combat, and one of the best single-player campaigns in first-person shooter history. Seriously, Effect and Cause, that one mission alone is legendary. However, despite its refined mechanics and critically acclaimed campaign, it never gained the traction it needed to thrive in the competitive FPS market. Why? Let's just say the timing couldn't have been worse. EA released it at a time sandwiched between Battlefield 1 and Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, leaving it crushed under two massive franchises. Despite glowing reviews, it barely made a dent commercially. But here's the kicker: those who played it can't stop praising its masterfully crafted campaign and expertly balanced multiplayer, which remain some of the best in the genre. Years later, the game has built a cult following, with fans still begging Respawn Entertainment for Titanfall 3. Will it ever happen? Who knows? But one thing's for sure, Titanfall 2 remains one of the greatest underappreciated gems in modern gaming.